She thought mocking her stepmother was just a game, a cruel way to prove she didn't belong. Every word dripped with arrogance, every glance carried silent judgment. But little did she know, the woman she ridiculed carried a secret so powerful it could turn her entire world upside down. And it all came crashing down the moment she laid eyes on a simple piece of paper, a bank statement. What she discovered that day shattered her pride, her assumptions, and everything she thought she knew about family. In the quiet suburbs, nestled among blooming gardens and freshly painted fences, lived Aisha, a woman of quiet strength and unshakable patience. She wasn't the type to boast or demand recognition. Instead, she worked tirelessly behind the scenes, balancing her job at a local firm with the delicate role of being a stepmother. Her laughter was gentle, her kindness evident in the way she remembered small details about people, and her resilience had carried her through storms life had thrown her way. But for her stepdaughter, Alina, none of that mattered. To her, Aisha was an outsider, an intruder in a home that once belonged only to her late mother. And though Aisha tried to bridge the gap with warmth and care, the walls of resentment grew thicker with each passing day. Aisha's friends admired her perseverance, often saying, "You have the patience of a saint." Yet, deep inside, she longed for acceptance, for a place in the heart of the girl she silently loved as her own. Little did either of them know, one ordinary evening would uncover truths neither expected, and change the fragile balance of their lives forever. The cracks in Aisha and Alina's relationship widened with time. At first, it was little things. Snide remarks at the dinner table, rolled eyes whenever Aisha offered help, or cold silences that lingered longer than words. But as months passed, the tension grew sharper, cutting through the walls of their home. One evening, Alina tossed her school bag onto the couch and muttered under her breath, "Why don't you just stop pretending? You'll never be my real mom." Aisha paused, her hands tightening around the dish she was washing. She wanted to answer with kindness, to explain that love wasn't bound by blood, but the lump in her throat held her words hostage. "Alina," she whispered softly, "I'm not here to replace anyone. I just want us to be a family." But Alina scoffed. "Family? You wouldn't even understand what that means. You're just after my dad's money." Those words struck like a dagger. Aisha knew she worked hard to contribute equally, to never be a burden. But Alina's bitterness twisted every gesture into suspicion. Friends and relatives noticed too. At family gatherings, whispers rose when Alina openly mocked her stepmother's plain clothes, her modest habits, even her simple way of living. "Why don't you buy something nice for once? Right? You probably can't afford it," Alina sneered one afternoon while scrolling through her phone, flaunting designer shoes she dreamed of owning. Aisha swallowed the hurt, hiding behind a quiet smile. But inside, she felt her heart breaking, not from the insult itself, but from the widening distance between them. She stayed silent, choosing peace over pride. Yet each silence only convinced Alina further that she was weak, that she didn't belong. The conflict reached its boiling point the day Alina stumbled upon an envelope left carelessly on the dining table. A bank statement with Aisha's name printed boldly across the top. Curiosity turned into disbelief as her eyes scanned the figures. Her face drained of color, and her arrogance froze in her throat. Everything she thought she knew about her stepmother was about to collapse, piece by piece. Alina's hands trembled as she held the bank statement, her eyes darting over the numbers again and again, unable to believe what she was seeing. The balance wasn't modest. It was massive. Aisha, the woman she mocked for her simple clothes and quiet lifestyle, had savings that far surpassed even her father's. Her chest tightened. Why would she hide this? The sound of soft footsteps pulled her back to reality. Aisha entered the room, drying her hands with a towel, unaware of the storm about to unfold. The statement was still in Alina's grip, her knuckles pale with shock. "What is this?" Alina's voice cracked, teetering between accusation and disbelief. Aisha froze. Her eyes fell on the paper, then back to her stepdaughter's wide, disoriented gaze. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. "That is something I never wanted to use as proof. But it seems life has forced my hand." Alina's anger surged, though beneath it quivered confusion. "All this time, you had money? Then why do you dress like that? Why live so ordinary? Were you just pretending? Aisha's heart pounded. She had endured years of silent jabs, each one cutting deeper than the last. But now, facing Alina's trembling voice, she could no longer swallow her pain. "No, Alina," she said firmly, her tone carrying a weight it never had before. "I wasn't pretending. I chose to live simply. I chose humility because life is not about showing what you have. It's about showing who you are." Her voice cracked slightly, revealing the ache she had buried for so long. "I wanted you to see me, not my bank account. I wanted you to accept me as someone who loves you, not someone who can buy your affection." The air grew heavy with silence. Alina's defiance faltered as she saw, maybe for the first time, the vulnerability in Aisha's eyes. "You think I don't notice your pain?" Aisha continued, her voice trembling. "Every insult, every cold glance. I've carried them quietly. Not because I'm weak, but because I hoped one day you'd see my heart before you judged me. And yet, here we are." Tears blurred Alina's vision. She had expected Aisha to gloat, to throw her wealth in her face. Instead, she was met with humility, honesty, and a love she had spent years rejecting. The statement slipped from Alina's fingers, fluttering to the floor like a discarded weapon. For the first time, her voice softened, almost breaking. "I didn't know," she whispered. Aisha's shoulders sank, the years of restraint pressing down on her. "Now you do," she murmured, her eyes glistening. And in that fragile moment, the walls between them began to crack. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, but the atmosphere in the house was heavier than usual. Alina sat at the breakfast table, her eyes lowered, the sting of last night's revelations still fresh. Aisha moved quietly around the kitchen, her calm presence filling the silence. Not with resentment, but with an unspoken invitation for healing. Finally, Alina spoke, her voice trembling. "I treated you terribly all this time. I thought you were nothing, but you're stronger than I ever gave you credit for." Aisha placed a cup of tea in front of her and sat down. She looked at Alina, not with triumph, but with the gentleness of someone who had already forgiven long before an apology was spoken. "Wealth doesn't define worth, Alina. Neither does appearance. What matters is how we treat each other, especially the people we call family." Alina's eyes brimmed with tears, shame coursing through her. "I thought you were after Dad's money, but all along, you had more than enough. And still, you never once used it to prove yourself." Aisha reached out, her hand resting softly over Alina's. "Because love doesn't need proof. It needs patience. It needs time. I wasn't here to compete with your mother's memory or to take your father's place. I was here to love you, even when you couldn't see it." Something shifted in Alina at that moment. The arrogance, the pride, the anger. All seemed to dissolve under the weight of truth and humility. For the first time, she saw Aisha not as an intruder, but as a woman of immense strength who had quietly endured her cruelty with grace. In that fragile silence, Alina whispered, "I'm sorry." Aisha smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "That's all I ever needed to hear." And so, the turning point wasn't in the revelation of wealth, but in the recognition of character. Aisha didn't win by proving her bank balance. She won by standing firm in humility and love, teaching Alina a lesson far more valuable than money could ever buy. What happened between Aisha and Alina is more than just a story of a strained stepmother-stepdaughter relationship. It shines a light on a much deeper issue that exists in many homes and communities: the way we judge people by appearances, status, or assumptions, instead of by character and actions. In societies around the world, stepfamilies face unique challenges. Studies in family psychology show that stepmothers are often judged more harshly than stepfathers, with negative stereotypes like the evil stepmother lingering in cultural narratives. These biases can fuel mistrust and resentment, even before genuine bonds have a chance to form. Aisha's story reflects this painful reality, where love and patience are often overshadowed by suspicion and prejudice. But beyond the stepfamily dynamic lies another pressing truth: how easily we equate worth with wealth, and identity with material possessions. Sociologists argue that consumer culture pressures us to measure success by visible displays, cars, clothes, brands, rather than inner values. As a result, humility is mistaken for weakness, and quiet strength often goes unseen until it forces recognition. Aisha's choice to live simply, despite her wealth, reminds us of an age-old lesson repeated by spiritual leaders and philosophers alike. True richness lies in character, not in bank statements. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Live simply so that others may simply live." Her example echoes this wisdom, proving that dignity comes not from what we flaunt, but from how we treat others. So what can we learn from this? First, we must challenge the habit of judging others by their circumstances, clothing, or lifestyle. Every person carries unseen battles, hidden strengths, and untold sacrifices. A kind word instead of a cruel assumption could change the entire course of a relationship. Second, for stepfamilies and blended households, empathy must replace suspicion. Experts recommend open communication, patience, and time as the keys to building trust. Just as Aisha endured years of silence and pain, many step-parents walk the same path, waiting for love to break through walls of resistance. Communities, too, must play a role in supporting, not stigmatizing, these families. Finally, as individuals, we need to reframe our idea of success. Wealth is not shameful, but neither is simplicity. What matters most is integrity. The ability to love, to forgive, and to treat others with respect, even when it isn't returned immediately. Aisha's story is not just about money or family. It's about us. It asks us to look at our own homes, our relationships, our communities, and ask, do we judge too quickly? Do we love conditionally? Do we mistake humility for weakness? Because if we do, we risk missing the quiet heroes among us. Those who live with grace, patience, and strength that no bank balance could ever measure. So, what do we take away from Aisha and Alina's journey? It's a reminder that love cannot be bought, and respect cannot be forced. It must be earned through patience, humility, and kindness. How many times in our own lives have we misjudged someone because of what they wore, where they came from, or what we assumed about their intentions? And how often have we failed to see the quiet strength in those around us? Today, I want you to pause and reflect. Is there someone in your life who deserves more understanding, more compassion, more trust? Maybe it's a parent, a sibling, a friend, or maybe even yourself. If Aisha's story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a moment when you learned not to judge too quickly. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with others. Together, let's build a community that values empathy over judgment, unity over division, and love over pride. Because when we choose compassion, we don't just change one relationship. We change the world, one heart at a time.